Hello, hello, hello. It's Jeremy Greider, the e-commerce redneck, and today I've got a really special guest on, a friend from the big commerce world, but now Meghan is the founder of Alentor, and I may have said that a little wrong, so correct me if I tried so hard. The funny thing about this is before we got on, she was trying to tell me like how to say it, and I couldn't say it. I just can't
All
say it.
right, I'll go for it. Alentor,
Alentor.
Alenter, Alentor,
Alentor.
not
Okay.
Atlanta. I mean, it's that e-commerce southern redneck stuff you got done on, my friend.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so what have you been up to? I knew you in the marketing world at Big Commerce and absolute marketing genius. I would love to just kind of find out what is going on with your world right now and how are things going and what would you like the world to know, Megan?
Well, you know what? When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? So I sort of left BC, Big Commerce or the commerce world in September 24. I went off to be the CMO of another company, left that company earlier this year in 2025. And then a couple of old commerce friends came across, Andy Van Eggs and James Patmore over at Alentor and said, hey, we believe that we can create a new category around pricing. That pricing isn't broken, but for enterprise retail, it's not giving them what they need in terms of profit based on margin. So let's use the confluence of where AI is today and data and pricing and all the processes and all the data science that goes behind it and create a new category called contextual AI pricing. So I've been a co-founder with those guys for several months right now, where we're just getting ready for MVP and to take seed round investment. So busy times. And look,
Nice.
I'll put you in the box straight away. You get from my accent that I may not be a redneck, like but I have lived in Texas since 2002. So
Okay.
we can talk about all things Texas if you want, but I do spend majority of my time right now in London, which is where we're forming our company.
Okay. Well, it's good to have you on, and that sounds really exciting. It's always, I feel like the market, the way things are going, what people want is just changing so
Yeah,
fast, so
yeah.
fast. And things we didn't know we wanted a year ago, we got to have it right now. And part of that is AI is moving so fast, and so I feel like there is kind of this world of there's I always I've said this a million times, but Shopify alone has 1900 AI apps, right? It's not about whether or not it's AI, it's whether or not it's effective, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's all
right.
about getting the right kind of MVP out because yeah, it's a huge field right now, and if you do it right, man, the world is the limit.
But I think that's the part of the problem for you, right? Is there are a lot of AI apps. You go on LinkedIn nowadays, you see a lot of people giving you this is the Chat GPT prompt I use, or this is the Claude prompt I used.
Right.
Go use it yourself and see what you could do. It is trial and test. It is, I'm going to keep it in with a cowboy theme for you. It is kind of the Wild West right now of AI because
Hmm.
everybody thinks that they know what it is. Everybody believes that they're using it for good, but reality is it's still evolving. It's revolutionary in what it's doing, and it's changing every environment, right? Whether you're looking at product build and design, you're looking at speed of building out websites and web pages. Hat tip to Lovable and what they've been building over there. Certainly, they generated more ARR than OpenAI in the first few months that they're on the AI. But it's meaning that marketers, actually, not just product developers who are vibe coding, but marketers have really got to understand what is the impact that they could have with AI in their daily jobs. And if you're not embracing it,
Hmm.
you are going to be left behind. I mean, you've got to think about how you can use AI. And then the last word on it for me is having used AI for over a year now on a lot of different things is you've got to trust but verify. So I'll pull in sort of my old military background to everything, right? You can trust it, but you got to verify everything. And I'll tell you, it gets you probably 80 to 90% of the way there, but you've then got to hone it and reskill it and ensure that it's right. I've had an enjoyable time calling out CEOs who have put out the latest report on AI. We did this in-house and we generated, and here are my personal thoughts on it. And I take it through an AI bot detector and go, those aren't your personal thoughts. It was, AI written 100%. So, you got to be careful about this.
One of the things I like to do is specifically with Chat GPT is I will have a conversation where I ask it not to go outside of what I give it, right? And then I try to write within my own knowledge and in by having a conversation. And what it's allowed me to do, of course, I have actually have a theology degree. My degree is in theology, bachelor's degree. And so I have written before. I had to get through school.
Yeah.
But I find this to be a lot easier for me because of my learning disabilities. Like I looked at a post I put up today and I wrote same backwards, so it helps me with stuff like that, not to make those mistakes, but it also helps me just to kind of figure out how to make my ADHD mind or thoughts more uniform. And I think if more people would kind of keep a rein on AI and not let it do all the work for them, but rather help them maybe be clear. Or, when it first came out, I would rewrite emails that I was really hacked off at somebody about. I would go in there and rewrite it, and I would be like, make this nicer,
Well, yeah, but look, I mean, that's it. That's what it is all about. You have to hone it, right?
Right.
You have to hone it to your own voice, which clearly you've gone ahead and done to help with, the challenges that you say you face. And I don't see those challenges. I love you for who you are and what you bring to the table every day, right?
I'm a fake it till you make it guy.
Well, I think most people are, but don't be lazy on AI, right? Don't
Right.
believe that just because you give a prompt or you're teaching it to do something that is goodness that you're going to get back. I mean, there are certainly things you can do now to, build up the LLMs or to build out a gem or something like that that contains, in a marketer's world, your brand voice, your assets. But you're still going to have to think about things strategically as to, marketing materials. Why am I going to create a marketing material? What's it going to be used for? What's it going to say? What is it that I want to come across as my narrative or my call to actions from this? What other things can it build out for me that supply, the follow-on LinkedIn posts or social posts or Instagram posts that are going to capture the hearts and minds? And if it works, if I get a ton of leads from it, or if I get a ton of likes and loves from it, take that feedback back in, retrain the AI model that this post really garnished a lot of likes and loves. Keep it this tone, keep this narrative, because that's what it seems to get. So I think prompting is getting better. It's just about the use. And those 1,900 apps that you talked about with Shopify or thousands more, whatever's out there, how does somebody navigate through all this stuff to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work? So, it's tough out there, and it's a tough marketplace, and it's a tough job marketplace as well.
Well, and the people that learn how to prompt, learn how to control things, learn how to use things in a systematic way.
Yep.
And not throwing out the baby with the bathwater of everything. For instance, your personal experience. That was one of my things that I had a problem with Big Commerce about, is they let a lot of people go that had legacy knowledge, right?
Yep.
And so I look at people with legacy knowledge, even in an industry, as, man, if you can get your head around prompting and figuring out how to use it for good, and it will make mistakes. It will do stupid stuff, and you've got to understand that. But if you do, you might get 95% great stuff and cut out just a little bit of it, and you've got perfection. So
yeah, and I'll give you an example. Not to toot Alentor's own horn here, but we've got some really seasoned engineers on our team.
Nice.
I come from enterprise SaaS, enterprise software, right? Where you're building for scale, but you're making sure it's robust. You're making sure you're building into ISO 27001s and your SOX compliances and everything else. There are people out there today that are using AI because they think, from all the ads that go on nowadays, that you could build an app in 24 hours and host it live and get it out there. That may be good for if you're building something for an iPhone or for a consumer small little app or a game or something. But if you're building enterprise software, again, Alentor, contextual AI pricing for enterprise retailers, you have to have the history, the legacy, as you put it, right, of how do you build systems from scratch that are going to have to integrate across your PIMs, your ERPs, your loyalties, right? How do you build it so that your APIs are not just robust, but are secure, because they're the next security
Yeah.
space, right? That somebody can
Yeah.
hack into and do things. So our engineers are bringing that experience and that legacy where I think today, I'm not trying to diss any millennial on this, but if you're a young coder or just think you're going to get away with vibe coding and building it and throwing out a few prompts into your MacBook or whatever you're building through, and out comes an app and there's a wonderful little GUI and you're going to launch it and stick it in the Apple App Store or the wherever you're going to put it out there, it's going to fail. And I worry that those 1900 apps hopefully have gone through Shopify's certification, right?
I mean, my God, I don't know. I mean,
I
I
hope so,
think,
dude, because otherwise you're exposing your data, and worse, you're exposing your credibility as a company.
well, I'm sure on the security side, yes, but I'm just saying, like, maybe they should tighten that a bit, you know?
I
That's
wholeheartedly
very
believe it should
confusing.
be tight. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to having a better curation of the most desired app. I mean, maybe like that. I mean, this is the thing. Shopify can do whatever the hell they want, and the world just goes, okay. You know, they've done it every step of the way. They are a payments first company. They are not just an e-commerce company. They
Right.
are about payments.
Yep.
That's how they make their money.
Monetization of payments.
But I would definitely say they could improve that just as far as knowing what is the best and what actually works. And maybe that's a badge. You know, maybe that's a badge you have to earn. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, let's look at shit that happened in the past couple of weeks. Good company. So I'm gonna lay it out there with a good company, Cloudflare,
Yeah.
right? Twice in the last 2 weeks, they've taken out a ton of sites, a ton of things. Now, the last one wasn't necessarily taking down your site. It was the back end and some other things that had gone on. But at the end of the day, that's the brand that people look to build startups on, to build AI tech on. It then takes you out and you're down because of Cloudflare for hours at that point. You can't resolve it. You can't get to your website. So your brandfulness is now taken away by a little bit of FUD, fear, uncertainty, or doubt about, hey, is Cloudflare really good right now? Is it going to be long that's out there? You know, what are we going to have to worry about? Stability as we move into this AI world is going to be more critical because AI is going to have all of these little connections and back-end things. You saw this with, OpenAI's connectivity right now into this sort of commerce world where they just announced that you can connect into a Shopify store, so Shopify store owners can now open up their store to a new channel going through ChatGPT. You can now sell through it, make it easy. But if components break along the way because you haven't built in that robustness and that safety feature or that trust, it's not going to be good. And so
No.
the more connected we are, I think the more risky we are in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this. I tell people all the time, your software cannot be AI first. It has to be engineered right first. That has to be the core
Correct.
of it. And
Correct.
AI should complement what you've already built, in my opinion, or what you're building.
Yeah.
When you, like you said, lovable and all those things, to me, they're great for getting a concept of an MVP out,
Yeah.
right? But then go to an engineer, go to a team, partner with somebody, because you're right. I have seen those things fall apart. My favorite story about that is apparently there was a site where ladies that had been on like dating sites were exposing guys, which is pretty funny to be all together. But then they built the site they exposed them on with like Lovable or something, and they hacked into them and found out who all the girls were and
Oh,
exposed
geez.
all of them. I'm like, my God, man, you people need to pay attention to security, and you need to understand that this is not a joke. Otherwise, stuff like that happens, and it's crazy and it's horrible, but it's kind of funny.
It is. We can close off this and we can talk about it. I go back to exactly how I opened up about AI. It's the Wild West right
Yeah.
now of tech, and
Yeah.
we have to be really cautious about it. I know everybody's taking their tin pans and their shovels trying to find the gold that may be out there in them thar hills or whatever. You better say it, dude, because I'm not going to say it properly.
Them their heels.
Then there are hills, but at the end of the day, there is going to be gold, but there's going to be a lot of stone. There's not going to be a
Yeah.
lot of stuff left. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say I've seen a lot of companies just by the time they come out with the product, somebody's already done it,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
And yeah.
And some of the most solid tech is the tech that's gone from an engineered product that they've added AI to. So it was already a good idea. It was already working. It was already out there, but now they're adding some juice to it with AI. And to me, that's the most interesting. If they don't have a really bad code base, I mean, it comes
No,
back
it
to
is a
that.
balance. That's a balance, right? Coming from enterprise software, the balance is you are seeing all, I think, tech companies that have been established for many, many years, decades, right? I've been in enterprise software for 3 decades, having to adjust and put AI into everything. I come from a DevOps world. I come from an AI ML world, e-commerce where you and I both work together, cybersecurity world. Every one of those places has got an AI construct to it or is trying to change it, right? It is a matter now, though, of is there going to be a newcomer versus an incumbent that can do what you're doing and have done for 2 decades in that software space? Better, faster, cheaper, more scalable with just an AI. I know you said don't want to call it AI first, but AI led or AI driven set of code base where you're having to retrofit what you've got to be AI compliant or AI usage. But, I think it's just going to be tough. But remember, we did that at BigCommerce. We took a closed SaaS product and
Hmm.
opened it up through all of the APIs to make sure that it was, API first as best as it was, at least through all the APIs that we needed to expose, while still
Hmm.
keeping the SaaS product viable and livable. We didn't have 2 code sets. We had 1 code set. And I think as you and I both experienced, occasionally, the platform went down because coding hasn't been tested out. Nobody's done
Right.
any backward testing or compatibility testing and stuff like that. So it's a very sharp world in software where consumer brand reputation trust can be eroded very quickly if you don't get it right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, there are so many platforms that are honestly shaking in their boots right now because Shopify is moving at a clip that is insane. Like, one of the big things that used to be an advantage for other more complicated softwares like BigCommerce was that Shopify had a limit on their options of 200 combinations that, boy, it was a dead stop. And actually, it may have been 100. I think it's 200,
You're
but
talking about the variance.
the variants, yes. And the variants, they changed that. They fixed that,
Yeah.
So now it's
Well, look,
like, okay,
you can if
there's
you have a development team of 2,000 people, you can fix anything over time.
oh, they're moving so fast though, and I will tell you this. I would love to see an upgrade too on BigCommerce's page builder, but the page builder on Shopify with the AI
It's magical.
is absolutely freaking magical. The other day I was sitting there with the designer and we're on Zoom and I prompted it to give me a picture with the little dots on it that I could move around that would blow out to show different things about the product as they hovered it.
Yep.
And it built it in like, 2 minutes. I was blown away. Like you almost don't even need a front end coder on Shopify anymore.
I know, and that's the scary thing because a lot of the jobs that people had done in the past, they built out their consulting or their agencies out of,
Hmm.
charging tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars to go build a site, and put it all together. It's probably 10x lower than it was before, right? You can build it really, really fast. Shopify's got a brilliant UI to it, brilliant page editor, and the others are again having to keep up and catch up. But
As I got into into e-commerce, I was a designer. That's the world I came out of. And
mm,
I will say this, I have more fun playing with Shopify's front end than any other. It blows me away. And again, but what I would like to see is a platform that can come in and give everybody a run for their money. So I think you're right. I think we're possibly months, years, less than years away from something like that popping up that everybody wants to get in on. I mean, even the TikTok shop stuff has kind of been a huge market, and I
mhm.
feel like Something I did want to mention to you. It seems like so much of things have shifted in e-commerce now, and it's shrunk as far as SaaS workers, from salespeople to like the job market shrunk, right? I think a big part of that was, during COVID and all that, people started ordering Amazon and getting it real quick, and it took over so much of the market. I sometimes I start thinking about this, and it kind of I don't know how to approach it, but what are your thoughts about that and how the job market and all that stuff has completely changed? Because I'm seeing people out there for 2 and 3 years that are some of the most talented people I know, not even being considered.
Look, I told you I'm co-founder of Alentor. I've not taken a salary since January. I got into Alentor purely because I see the opportunity in contextual AI pricing, and I trust the guys that we're building the company with. But I have my own self went through many job interviews, working with executive recruiters, being put forward for jobs, minimum of 5 interviews per company, sometimes 8, including with the company I just mentioned earlier, only to be told we're going to go with the other candidate. Now, it isn't a rain on me from Meghan because of that. It is a job market that really does suck right now. And I think you're right. A lot of things have come about because of post-COVID. We're in that similar job recession, I guess is a better word for saying it. It's also been brought about because of AI. I mean, we just had a great chat about AI, but AI is, at Big Commerce, we had 8+ content writers. If you can train your LLM, you can train your gem, you can train, whatever it is you're using, and then have it act as, and you're feeding it the right level of base information, brand library, assets, etc. And then you prompt it to ask it for a repeatable series of 8 thought leadership pieces, all targeting different ICPs and personas, and each must be 1,500 words each. You want to have a strong call to action. Boy, it'll pump it out in a minute, 2 minutes. And then you have to go through the trust and verify stuff I talked about earlier on. So I think AI has inhibited a lot of things. And I think companies rushed to say, hey, we're hearing that AI can do a lot more. We're kind of heavy right now. Let's look at our EBITDA, see where we can go ahead and reduce cost, reduce headcount in some way. Do we need that many people? No, we don't. So was it a finance push decision to get rid of people? Who knows, right? I think the reckoning, the reality of the reckoning is they do need people to be those sort of system administrator type folks that could do the true prompting and thought and strategic stuff behind it to get things done. What I have done in the last 2 companies, including Alentor, is start to use AI, where I unfortunately know myself the reality that as we start to grow, let's say Alentor does get its seed round funding and we, get our customers on board, we'll probably not need as many marketers as I did in the past.
Right.
So the job impact, it really sucks. But at the end of the day, as painful as it is to be, quote, unemployed, air quote, have 0 salary, leaning into your strengths and saying, you know what, I'm going to overcome this. I'm better than this. I'm going to find new things to do. I think that's incumbent upon all of us. And so, what I have tried to do, and I go through my bouts of self-doubt of, oh boy, after 3 decades of great experience in marketing, partnerships, product, I was a developer a long time ago. I know how to integrate systems, or I knew how to integrate systems and build the code and buses and schemas and do all the integrations that were needed that. And then code and support and sell. I've been in sales, I ran sales and all those things. You move on to new things. And I think that's the one thing that we as humans get to be really good at is innovation. And you don't have to innovate a product, you can innovate yourself. And so, the mental hoops that I go through, and I still go through them. I went through them the other day of, am I good enough? Being a startup founder, it's risky. It's really risky. At the end of the day, not a lot of startups succeed. I think we're onto a winner here at Alentor, but I do have that self-doubt. And it worries me that so many, as you put it, so many great people that we know, that you and I worked with, not just at Big Commerce, but at many of our partners as well, right? Whether you were looking at agency partners, you're looking at tech ISV partners, a lot of great people are in the same boat trying to figure out what the F just happened, what am I going to do? And we're all scrambling to apply for the very limited amount of jobs that are actually out there. And, it's tough. You're trying to promote yourself as being the best candidate for that role, at the same time knowing there's probably 1,000 other candidates that are applying, and worse, there's freaking AI on the back end of the job portal
Sorting
reviewing,
you out of it.
right? And so are you ATS ready with your resume? That's when networking comes into it with the people that you know there. So it is a shit state of affairs for many people in this world. But, building, doing, and growing and networking and loving on people, is a human nature of saying, hey, how can I help? And if I can help anybody, you better bloody know it, as my British coming out, that I'm going to go ahead and do that for anybody and see what
Well,
I could do to help them.
I will say, and I can't speak for commerce or the modern version of big commerce, and I'm not saying they're not by any means, but I can say the people that come from early on and from even later, right before we IPO'd, we were hiring at bucket one and bucket
Bucket
two.
two.
It
Yeah.
was who you were as a person, and bucket one from a business perspective, and number two was who you were as a person. And
Ambitiousness.
yes, and we talked about being ambitious, humble but ambitious, and that is a core thing I live by. And we just had so many incredible people that were there at that time, and I think, a lot of people try to establish good culture. We had it in droves early on, and it
Yep.
was incredible. Our meetings were emotional, they were
Yep.
impactful. People got inspired. They went out and they pushed harder. They got stuff done. And that was fun. But, it's funny. So many of these companies with AI feel like they're really losing the heart of what they're doing, and that's scary, and I would just encourage people to remember, as much as you can, obviously we all have to make money, but as much as you can, remember the human element.
100%.
Remember the human element, because people matter. And in the end, I am out there all the time promoting my friends, promoting the people I know that can do a good job. And I'll say this to everybody in the audience: if you need somebody in e-commerce, I know somebody you need to know. So you reach out to me, and I have friends like Megan here that are world-class marketers and can help you. So, I'm really excited about the opportunity too. And I'm kind of feeling like, it's funny, Megan, because I feel like, I've got a bunch of little contracts, and I'm kind of like piling everything together to make it, but it's adding up, and it's adding up, and it's
Yeah.
adding up to where, I'll be able to do more strategic advisory type stuff. And honestly, I love that. I love getting behind a company and saying, hey, you should try this. You should do this. Have you looked at this? Do you know about this? And
Well, you're absolutely right, dude. Sorry to cut you off on that, but you have to as a business, and I love what you bring. You bring a passion that is very rare, right? And we've had separate chats to this about things that we've both gone through in life and stuff, but you always bring a loving passion to what you do. And I think if you, as a business, as a company, are willing to kick the tires, right? Be uncomfortable, or be comfortable with being uncomfortable and testing things, testing new ideas. A former CEO, Charles Wang, and I've worked for great people, and I've worked at great companies with great culture. Charles Wang was the CEO of a company called Computer Associates way back a long time ago.
yeah,
And he sort of he called me the kid, and he would say things like, you have to understand that when we're zigging and our competition begins to zig with us, that's our time to zag, right? So you got to keep doing this. And when they start zagging, that's when you go back to zigging. What I'm going with that is a company that puts things in motion and keeps them as is because they think they're working, and doesn't experiment, doesn't test, doesn't think about new channels, right? New opportunities, new ways of doing things, new ways of either generating content or expanding into channels like Snapchat, TikTok, or whatever it may be, right? Or at least different ways of looking at how you're presenting your SKUs, your products, in terms of how it's represented on the screen, or looking at loyalties and promotions and segments and groups. If you're not consistently thinking about, if you don't test all this time, and you don't rely on somebody just like Jeremy here to give you those ideas and those hints and the tips and the experimentation, then you are going to fail because your competition will be testing it. They will be thinking about it, and they'll probably be doing it. So I want to throw it back to you, Jeremy, is about what the word you use when we talk about ambitiousness at Big Commerce. You are just a great human, and I personally
Yeah.
love you for who you are and never want you to change because of that.
I appreciate that. I always say, I grew up, in the church, and I have a theology degree, and I'm not a pastor anymore, but I always say that I lead with love.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can go wrong when you enter every opportunity that you meet somebody leading with a loving attitude, because you also never know what somebody might be going through. And,
100%.
I've been blessed at Big Commerce several times. I can't tell you, and I won't mention names,
Yep.
but I cannot tell you how many times just being present and them knowing, I was an alcoholic in my 20s, and me being honest about it, and me being honest about, myself as a person, and just being out there, how many people came up, hey man, I'm struggling with drug addiction, or I'm struggling with alcoholism, or I'm struggling, and they just wanted help. They just needed somebody to hear. And we hired one of them, and he's been sober for 5 years when we started the agency. That kind of stuff, that's what matters, because money comes and goes, but people don't. And I'll tell you, I got at least 100 people that are ride or die for me that I worked with at Big Commerce,
Yeah. Well, I'd love to be one of those folks, but I agree. I think
Definitely.
I've been a leader, an executive for many years, and I've had a few people that I reported to that have said, hey, maybe sometimes I'm a little too transparent. But I believe, just as you said it, we're all carrying some baggage. We all have something that's going on in our lives, whether it's a aging parent we're having to care for, whether it's the terrible C word with cancer, whether it's, as you mentioned, alcoholism or drug abuse, or just family issues, relationship issues, kid issues. You talked about ADHD. My kid's got some issues too, right? We've all got this. And if we find a way to, I don't want to say normalize it in the wrong way, but if we find a way to share our experiences and normalize that we're going through stuff too, and therefore it's okay for you to talk to me, I'm here for you, I'm a door. I may not have the answers, I may not have the solutions, but know, just as you probably read in scripture and stuff, that you're not going to carry the water by yourself. I'm also here to go ahead and carry the water with you, and that, God or whatever you believe in doesn't put things in your way that you're not going to be able to overcome. It's just a matter of finding the right way to do it and not going it alone. And I hope that as a leader, I've brought that not only to what I did at Big Commerce, but other companies, BMC Software, CA Technologies, dare I say, Thrivecart, or now I'm doing it at Alentor, right? Is to bring your whole self and not be stressed out about thinking you have to hide something. Because especially in this world of e-commerce where you and I were at, we are serving customers and merchants of all different sizes, formats, styles, orientations, whatever it is, right? And if we can raise the narrative with our own employees to understand and respect and support and come at it with grace, I think that is a marvelous thing for humanity. We're only here for a very short period of time. So for goodness sake,
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like that's something that, what was really great, and I'll have to show you sometime my resume from Big Commerce when I applied there. It literally said genius for hire at the bottom. It had a picture of Tesla on each side, like the inventor. And then it had all my skills on the back. It had my design portfolio. I was the first person they called back at that event, and they hired most of the shoguns, which were early on the guys that they built all the different departments from:
Yeah.
enterprise, support. Well, not support as much, but like all the sales side of
Yeah.
things. The shoguns were the
Yeah.
seed men that did that. And I was the first one hired that on that round. And it was hilarious because the first enterprise rep for Big Commerce was a guy named Bill Paul. And he's real put together, very Superman, handsome looking guy. And I walked in there. I didn't have this many tattoos. By the way, Big Commerce did all of this to me, basically.
Yeah.
No, I got tatted up while I was there, but I came in and I had that kind of outgoing. And the first thing I said is, if y'all are looking for that type of dude, I ain't that guy, And they laughed and they hired him too. I said, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I just thought Mr. Preppy, that is definitely not me. But it was a very exciting 7.5 years. I had a good time. I will say I actually took this assessment right before I left, and it was, I forget what it was called. One of my friends does it, and the assessment showed that I was extremely bored before I left. And then 6 months later, after I was the CEO of Cart Consultant, it was completely flipped. I was completely busy. I was completely happy. I was, and so I think I just kind of got to that point where if I would have stuck around, it would have got ugly for me. And so I'm glad I left, and it's been a wild adventure, but it's been a lot of fun too. I've learned a lot.
Oh, that's it. Feed your passion. That's what said before about you. You're very passionate, and I appreciate that, right? You bring it to everything you do. So.
I appreciate you. Well, I definitely we could go on forever, but I really appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah.
Meghan, you've always been super nice to me, and I've always got along with you and respect you and your work. And if somebody wants to get in contact with you, how would they do that right now? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way is through LinkedIn. I have a huge network, and again, if I can help somebody find something, help somebody find a job, help network you to somebody, find me on LinkedIn, and I'd be more than happy to help you.
Excellent, excellent. And I can't say it enough. World-class marketer, great person. And if you need somebody in that space, you definitely got to talk to Meghan. But with that said, thank you for coming on, and we'll see you soon.
I appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks.